Okay, so this challenge begins with a little activity. I was cleaning my grandfather's attic when I found a treasure map. So the treasure map has clues in it to help find the treasure. And I would like for you to try and find this treasure yourself. So the treasure map is attached here on Dreamseed Do, and it says, "Congratulations, you have found my treasure map. If you listen well, finding the treasure is a snap. Take the function f of x equals x squared minus 12. Graph it first and all will be laid bare. Then graph the function g of x equals x. It's a line. After this, one more thing and you'll see the sign. Where the two functions cross in quadrant 1 is the point where you would want to dig and dig and dig, and when you find the treasure, go and do a jig." So a couple of components here. There are two functions provided to you. My advice is to go ahead and graph them in your notebook by hand. So again, if you don't know how to graph these kinds of functions, you can always do a table of values. So I'll do a couple of examples for you. In your notebook, you should have a page titled, page titled Treasure Map. So go ahead, open up your notebook and do that. Pause the video here while you set up your notebook, and then you can keep playing the video when you're finished. Okay, so, you have two functions that you're graphing. One of them is x squared minus 12. So this is not a linear equation, it's a quadratic equation, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that is later. But, and then the second equation is just g of x equals x, okay? So you're gonna go ahead and graph these two functions. You can take your x and y axis. So maybe I'll do this one, okay? And if you don't know how to graph these kinds of functions, it might be better to do a table of values first. I would advise that you graph them on the same graph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table of values first. Why isn't it? Okay, there we go. So first I'm going to make a table of values. So I'm going to make one for f of x, okay? So my table of values for f of x, make sure you include negative values as well. So negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Your input is x. Your output is f of x, which happens to be x squared minus 12. So I'm going to try these values. And I'm going to plug them in wherever there's an x. So for this one, it's going to be negative 3 squared minus 12. Negative 3 times negative 3 is equal to 9 minus 12, which results in negative 3. So at the point negative 3, I would have a point at negative 3. So negative 3, negative 3, there's a point right there. So that's an example. I'm going to let you do the rest of the work here. You're going to take your two functions and you're going to graph both of them. Either, if you don't know how to graph these functions, you could do a table of values for both and graph them. If you do know how to graph a parabola and a line without doing a table of values, that's fine as well. I do not want you to use Desmos. I don't want you to look it up. I want you to graph these by hand. Once you're finished graphing, so pause the video here and finish your graph. And then when you're done, we'll keep the video playing and we'll talk about the rest of the treasure map. Okay, so now that you've graphed both of your functions, I don't have the graph here because I want you to do this yourself. We're going to look at the other clues in the treasure map. So in the treasure map, it says, after this, one more thing, and you'll see the sign where the two functions cross in quadrant 1. So hopefully this is review. But if this is new to you, you're not familiar with this at all, that's okay. In the coordinate plane, in the XY axis here, XY plane, there are 4 quadrants. There's this one, this one, this one, this one. So you see your X-axis and your Y-axis create 4 parts, right? 4 quadrants. Each of those quadrants have specific points in them. For now, I'm just going to label them for you so you know which is quadrant 1. And then we'll talk later about what does it mean to be in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So starting on the top right quadrant, this is actually your quadrant 1 right here. Quadrant 1. And then we're going to go in a counterclockwise direction, so against a clock. A clock normally goes like this. We're going to go against a clock, counterclockwise. This right here is quadrant 2. And then keep going. This right here is quadrant 3. And then the last one is quadrant 4. So 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 is the top right here. If you notice, quadrant 1 has all the positive X values and the positive Y values. We've used it a lot in our real world examples. But go ahead, label your 4 quadrants and use this clue to find the point where the treasure is. So remember, the clue says where these two functions cross, where they intersect, is where the treasure will be. So go ahead, graph the two functions, find their intersection in quadrant 1, find that point, and then take a photo of all your work in your notebook and upload it on DreamSeeDo. If you're unsure with this, you can always ask me for help, message me, or ask me in workshop.